Hello and welcome back to the channel once again. My name is Hollow and today I want to talk to you about the 5 upcoming MMOs that I think you should absolutely know about if you don't already. Some of these have some controversy behind them, we're going to include some speculation and concerns, but they all look like they could be fantastic MMOs and they're being developed right now. This list won't be in any particular order, like which is the best MMO out of these or which is coming first, so we're just going to start with the first one I think many MMO players will know about, TERA 2. Speaking of controversial games, TERA was filled with it. Funnily, it became more questionable as time went on. Many MMO players will know about TERA. It had one of the best, very best combat systems in any MMO ever. Unbelievably satisfying, flashy, it was brilliant. Coupled with some great class variety, top tier visuals for its time, and paired with those two core elements, this game has some fantastic dungeons and areas to explore. It really had promise, and I think a lot of people gave it a try because of that. This was actually one of the first Eastern MMOs I ever tried alongside Aeon. And yeah, no doubt this game was grindy, but it was manageable. With a combat system like this, so satisfying, it made the grinding feel good and it all looked great. And then you got the dungeon on top, it was great. But and there's a but. This game steadily grew worse and worse as time went on. It was reworked massively not once but multiple times, and it would seem players didn't appreciate the changes that were made. TERA's pay-to-win presence only grew and grew, and the updates that added new content like those new dungeons made everything you currently had irrelevant. Sure, you had some new things to do, but the core concept was always the same. You would do old repeat content as well as the new stuff, upgrading your gear by repeat running dungeons with faster clear times with improved gear. Unfortunately, it got a little, well, outrageously repetitive. The end game was pretty much the same thing the whole way through. And TERA, unfortunately, was quite oppressed by its pay-to-win elements and systems that, well, aren't fun to do. So why is this game even on the list? Well, the combat and world, seriously, was that good. Everyone I spoke to about TERA in regards to TERA 2 all said the same thing. The combat was so good. The classes, the character creator, the world, just top tier. And the systems and the games surrounding that was awful. God awful. But people still enjoyed their time with the game because that core, that combat, was good enough to carry it for a period anyway. So with the TERA 2 potential in the works, that's the big question. Will they have learned from their mistakes? No doubt if we saw a TERA 2, we're going to get great combat, great classes, great visuals, all updated, and some new fun dungeons. But the actual game surrounding that and the reason that you keep playing it for a longer period of time, will that be better? And unfortunately, when you consider the fact that these major reworks were so negatively received by the dedicated players of the game, that makes it kind of hard to expect them to do it better or right with a sequel. But that doesn't mean there isn't a chance, and let's be honest, I think anyone who had original interest in TERA or gave it a try at any point will still get a kick out of a sequel and enjoy themselves, even if it's only for 1 month of play on launch, and well, I think that's totally fine. But maybe, just maybe, they'll do it better this time. Next up for this list, it's gotta be Lost Ark. I just made an entire video dedicated to this game because I think it's so good looking, so go check that out. It's on the channel right now. So I'm not gonna go crazy detailed here since I, very recently made a more in-depth video specifically about it, but let me give you the core details. It's an isometric, Diablo-esque hack-and-slash MMORPG. The animations are insane. The classes look phenomenal. The many in-game systems are unique and even genius to certain levels. And I'm very excited for this game. The raw gameplay looks so crisp and fun that I could just play it for that, to be honest. Kind of like TERA in that way. But to go alongside this brilliant gameplay is an actual story that actually looks good. Crazy, I know. Big, thought-out cinematics, clever use of camera angles, interesting characters and their story and progression. It's something we should really expect in our MMOs at this point. I'm glad it's here in this one at least. We got big raids with the endgame content, dungeons with no class requirements, meaning you can go in without a dedicated healer or tank, for example. World events like the Chaos Gates, where you go in random, these gates open randomly around the world, and you go in to face an invading demonic army to crush the invasion and close the portal after you defeat a giant world boss alongside many other players, all within a 15-minute time limit. Dedicated PvP with 1v1s, 3v3s, and a giant free-for-all deathmatch in that isometric Diablo style of gameplay. That's what I want. That's what we're kind of excited about for Diablo 4, but it's already there in Lost Ark. This game even has its own class starting story. Each major class evolves into a specific tree, right? So a warrior could choose to become a paladin or go full berserker mode, or the other two classes like destroyer warlord. And each class is totally unique. It's what you are now. It's that specific and entirely new class and playstyle. So with the 18 classes in game currently, each core class gets its own region and starting story to play through. So if you're a warrior, you'll start out in a frozen tundra and learn your backstory, while learning how to play that class too. The mage gets its own one, the assassin does too, and so on. That's great. I love that we actually get a backstory, get to experience it for once instead of just read about it, and I love that it gives me an extra reason to try a new class. Naturally, the game's got a great character creator and a bunch of other features that I do go into detail in that dedicated video, and obviously I'm very excited for this game. But the big question is, when is it coming out? It's already been out for a little while in its original region, Korea, and it has released in China, Japan, and now Russia. Explicitly, the CEO mentioned bringing the game to other developed places around the world, and well, the only place or region for it to go to now is the West. Based on the timeline of the other region releases, I think it's extremely likely to see this game announced in 2020 for the West next year. So obviously I'm very hopeful because goddamn does this game look good, and I have been quite tempted to play the English patch for the Russian servers if I get particularly impatient. Moving on for the third game on this MMO list, it's Crimson Desert. Does that name sound familiar? Almost like Black Desert? Well, it should, because this game is actually made by the same people and is actually set in the same world thousands of years before the events of Black Desert. Black Desert is another controversial game, another MMO with insanely good classes and combat, top tier character creation, and it's a game that was set up for success, and it definitely did succeed, but it isn't without issues, with pay to win elements and endgame issues too, not to mention that story being super bare bones while you're leveling. I'm happy to say that with Crimson Desert, it's specifically trying to address those issues you might have with Black Desert itself. We're looking at a very story-focused MMO, set around 5 playable mercenaries in a more medieval setting. Actually, you know what this literally looks like? It looks like the world of The Witcher, with monsters, factions, big bads, a harsh but beautiful land. Plus, with a dedicated story that they really stress in their trailer and the talks about it, that it's a focus point. I mean, just look at the trailer. I'm super intrigued by this. They have you playing Jon Snow in the world of The Witcher. I'm all up for that. Obviously, I'm kidding. He does look like Jon Snow, and this does look like the world of Witcher, but it does look good. We can expect a fantastic combat system from these devs, and we can expect a much better story experience this time too. Personally, I really like the setting, but what else will it offer? They've told us that we should expect a more meaty, fleshed out PvE game here compared to Black Desert, and yes, like Black Desert, we can also expect PvP elements. Black Desert was a very PvP focused game, and it was very good PvP. But it seemed like from the interviews that I've looked at, they really want to stress the PvE side more here, so that it's less grind orientated, and in their words, a more traditional MMO. So more likely we'll see more dungeons and raids, and yeah, we'll probably see lots of profession stuff since these are the Black Desert guys. Now, we don't have a release date on this, just this cinematic non-gameplay showing trailer, but we do have a beta announced coming out next year in 2020, and apparently it's also going to be coming to console on top of PC, but who knows if it'll be like a same-day release or have any crossplay. Naturally, while looking at Black Desert, I do wonder about the pay-to-win elements that might creep their way into this game, but they do seem to be going in a totally new direction here, having learned some lessons, so I'm very hopeful for this one. Next up, for our fourth MMO in this list, we're talking about an almost forgotten game, Project TL. Another Diablo-esque game that looked absolutely hype AF. I mean, holy crap, look at the scale of these battles and the combat, the classes. This was such a good trailer, almost like too good to be true. And this trailer came out 2 years ago, and we've not really heard much official since. Perhaps it really was too good to be true. Cinematically, I love the introduction to this trailer and the game here, cleverly following the night for a city, looking like a kind of single-player RPG, and then it slowly scales back and back and back to reveal the insane scope of it all. I'm all for that. The game was, at the time, set to be the main competitor to Lost Ark, specifically, so obviously I had to talk about it on this list. Both of these games looked like powerhouses when they were first revealed, but only one of them is playable right now, and the other there is a big question mark. Now, that doesn't mean NCSoft aren't working on this game. It could just be that, hey, it takes a while to develop a game and it took longer than planned. Or even it just takes a while to make, But it is weird how quiet they've been on this. You really would expect a bit more from them at this stage. Now, apparently after this game didn't garner enough attention, it seemed like they started to rework certain things about the game, and that would explain why it's been a bit delayed. However, NCSoft originally announced this game as a PC game, right? A PC MMO. The visuals look great, comparable to Lost Ark. Looks like great gameplay for an MMO world, but horrifyingly, one of their updates mentioned that the game is going to have, quote, streamlined gameplay. What does that mean? Let me just give you the bad news. They said that this game is going to have support from mobile devices, which means Project TL could have been reworked into a mobile game where they expect to see more profit. These are the Lineage 2 guys, remember, which is not good at all. Perhaps it's going to be crossplay, PC and mobile together, with the mobile version being way simpler. I mean, many games do this right now, and look at League of Legends even, a massive game, and they're now releasing a mobile version that's much more simple and surprisingly looks quite good. It's possible to do both is what I'm saying here, and maybe that takes a lot of time to release both at the same time. They don't want to say anything until it's more realized and closer to being finished. So obviously I have hope, but as foolish as that may be, the trailer, it just looked so good. The gameplay looked so good. With Lost Ark, doing it. I thought this was possible. Finally, for our 5th game on this list, I'm going to talk about a game no one really knows about. Perhaps the most underrated MMO of all time, dude. I mean, you might never have heard of this one. It's called World of Warcraft, and they're bringing out this new expansion called Shadowlands, probably super under the radar. Jokes aside, Battle for Azeroth, their last expansion, was... Look, it was awful. Battle for Azeroth was bombarded with criticism, with horrific RNG gameplay systems, unbearably dull grinds, and way over-pruned classes and gameplay. The expansion that came before this, Legion, seemed like such a step forward with new systems and, experimentation. And we thought we would see those things improved, advanced, and refined in Battle for Azeroth. And they kind of just took it all away. I think it's fair to say that Battle for Azeroth is a contender for the worst expansion in WoW's history. Meanwhile, so I can totally blindside you, the story and cinematics from this expansion have been really fun to watch and experience. Every 3 months when they update it while I don't actually play the game or subscribe. The story team, cinematic team, they knock it out of the park. And they've set up many events leading to what we now know as the Shadowlands expansion. Pair that up with the recent unbelievably successful launch of Classic WoW, the original launch of the game, that I personally been loving myself. I just hit 60 on my rogue at last. You've got a promising potential redemption arc coming in for WoW, and yes, it certainly needs one. They promised to return class agency to the game, so let's say a rogue will feel like a rogue again. You bring a rogue specifically for a reason, compared to now where you'd probably just be bringing any random melee because you need a melee. The RNG elements of gear and how you gather gear and upgrade gear are being completely changed and toned down, like the legendaries, how they're coming back, but this time you can specifically target which one you want to work towards. A new, exciting, mysterious, big bad enemy known as the Jailer. And fuck, come on man, that cinematic with how Sylvanas opened the way to the Shadowlands was so good. Basically, Blizzard are poised to learn from the success of Classic and why we love that original game, the community, the social aspects, the way that we actually enjoyed experiencing gearing and increasing in power. These new factions that they're adding to make impactful story choices like Burning Crusade. Plus, you got new cosmetics, fun cosmetics to work towards, and a reason to play and all to try other factions for their story, like, the class hall storylines in Legion. As much as I do not like Battle for Azeroth as an expansion, the raids were absolutely top tier, and I regret missing them for that. Some of the best PvE content in all MMOs ever. And yeah, man, the Mythic Plus system for dungeons has been great since its launch in Legion. They just improved it in Battle for Azeroth. So they're sure to do more with it in Shadowlands. And did someone say, bring back the Mage Tower? Yes, it was me. I did. Bring back something like the Mage Tower in Shadowlands, Blizzard, because it was really good, and I don't know why you've dropped it. Now, I'm not saying Shadowlands is going to fix every problem that Blizzard have with current WoW, with their repetitive, formulaic gameplay loop per every major patch. But by God, I am saying that this is a new direction and they're acknowledging their mistakes. Story-wise, it's definitely going to be great. The setting's great. I'm going to enjoy the launch. But there's potential here that I will enjoy the entire expansion and fully commit to the game again because I'll really enjoy it. I hope so, at least. What do you think of Shadowlands? Are you hopeful? For now, though, that's my list. 5 MMOs to look out for next year, be it launch info, confirmed releases, betas, or whatever. Let me know what you think about any of these topics. I'll definitely be having a chat in the comments, so look for me there. Maybe there's an MMO that I didn't include in this list that I should look at, and you can tell me about it. But either way, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and I'll see you next time.